This podcast is part of the Podcast Arcade Network.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Paranormal Dads. I'm your co-host, Eddie.
I'm Andy.
I'm Pat.
And we welcome you to join us as we go in search of the monsters, myths, and mysteries that surround us on Paranormal Dads. The stage is set.
Good evening, everyone.
Ooh.
Or afternoon or morning, whichever.
What really sets the stage
be.
is these unicorn napkins
Yes.
that are on our table right now.
We should put a picture of these up.
Eddie, you should probably explain the unicorn.
Yes, well, I'm a fan of unicorns. I think it explains itself. There we go. No, my youngest daughter, Gwen, is in a unicorn phase that she is, and it's probably not a phase. She's going to love unicorns till the day she dies.
She's going to get a unicorn tattoo when she's 18 at this rate.
Exactly. But she requested her birthday party be unicorn themed. And so we're like, well, let's do this. So we have unicorn everything, and we have so many spare napkins that I thought, what better napkins to use as we munched and snacked before our episode than
Thanks for the pizza rolls, by the way.
Yes, intern Daphne was kind enough to make us about 500 pizza rolls, and they were delicious, and we feasted before we podcasted.
And now we're in a food coma.
Only the finest pizza rolls for my buddies.
But that's the thing, we're dads first and paranormal enthusiasts second. So I was like, we sat down and I was like, this is such a dad move to be eating pizza rolls on unicorn napkins.
It really is. I don't know if it gets more dad mode. This is like socks with sandals at Target.
And we're not even sorry about it.
Nope, no apologies. Hey, with that...
Let's go to recent sightings.
Ooh.
Okay, well, this week in recent sightings, something I came across was the president of Brazil.
Ooh.
You know the country.
It's my second favorite country.
Not the county, not Brazil County, Brazil the country. Yeah.
They have the best nuts.
Oh, nuts.
The president of Brazil has moved out of the presidential palace. You want to take a guess why?
Hold on, let me think. Possessed garden gnomes.
Andy?
Too many beautiful people walking around.
Ooh.
You know, it is Brazil.
Distractions.
It is Brazil. No, he actually thinks his place might be haunted, and he didn't like the vibe the place was giving him. So he and his wife and his son all packed up, moved out, went back to the vice presidential palace where he started out in his political career with the country. And so now the presidential palace sits empty in Brazil.
That's crazy.
That is creepy, man. I mean, do you think they would have enough pull that he would do, like, snap his fingers? Intern, get rid of these ghosts, please.
Garçon, these ghosts, they bother me.
Is Garçon a Brazilian name?
No,
that sounds French.
It is.
They import their interns from France.
I'm a paranormal dad, not an international culture dad.
But it all started, this actually all kind of took place back in March, but Michel Temer is the president of Brazil, and he took office last year after the impeachment of his predecessor, and I'm going to butcher her name, but it's Dilma Rousseff.
That sounds French.
Something like that.
It does sound French.
Temer told a Brazilian news magazine that he and his family were leaving the Alvorada Palace because they found it too spooky. In March of 2017, they decided to move back to the vice presidential palace where they started out. And in an interview, he mentioned he could not sleep in the ample rooms and questioned the possibility of a ghost.
Wow.
Ample rooms. I wonder if like his bedroom's like 2,000 square feet, and when you have that much space, maybe you just always feel like somebody's looking at you. You know, like the feeling of being watched.
Yeah.
Well, the building actually looks pretty cosmopolitan. It was built back in 1958, so it's not a new building by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a very long kind of, almost even for 58, it's kind of space agey looking place, but it's very long, and I guess his son just loved running the length of the place. It was so huge.
Really?
But
It's because he was running from all the ghosts.
I'd run too, Billy.
But mom and dad did not like it. They said as soon as they moved in, they felt a bad vibe. He was having problems sleeping. And his wife, Marcella, even brought in a priest in an attempt to drive out any evil spirits, but to no avail. He continued to have bad nights there in the palace, and they decided to move out. Now, it could be maybe he just has a bad conscience. I guess he's actually under the gun right now in a little political controversy as well.
Oh,
That's
no.
what
So he's on the verge of getting impeached too, huh?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he could be on the way out anyway. But yeah, he just didn't like the vibe of the place. It sounds like it was a pretty nice place. It has a huge pool, football field, which in Brazil is probably
Football.
soccer.
Yeah.
It's probably soccer.
Yeah,
right?
it's not American football there.
Exactly.
It's got a chapel, a medical center, a vast lawn. So it sounded like it's a nice place to live, but apparently not for Michel Temer.
I wonder if they're more open to that down in South American culture. I guess I couldn't say for sure one way or another. I know Brazil is like a turbo Catholic country. Actually, and don't quote me on this because we're gonna have somebody fact check this and say, Paranormal Dads are wrong.
Idiots.
But I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that Brazil has more Catholics than any other country on planet Earth.
Really?
Yeah, and you got the big Christ the Redeemer statue on top of the mountain down there, and I don't know. I
Seems like the Pope just paid a visit there recently.
I don't know.
Possibly.
Moved to Omaha and then let me know.
Pope's from Argentina, so just hop, skip, and a jump
Oh, yeah.
over to Brazil, I guess. Well, not from the Vatican, but I mean
Yeah.
from his home country of Argentina. But I think we've all had that feeling, right? Of the vibes just not being right somewhere.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there are places you can go into, and I've walked into even old houses and places, and it's just like, I do not like being here.
What I find particularly interesting is when you go to a place and you're not even like thinking that way. Like we were at the Joslin. Is there one Joslin Castle or is there several?
No, there's just one Joslin Castle.
Then we were in the Joslin Castle for a wedding, and it has multiple floors, And so we were down. Is there three?
Four.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
there's four.
We were on the third floor, I think. And there wasn't any party goings-ons on the third floor, and so it was the first and second. And then one of the kids went up to the third floor and was just, futzing around up there. They were little back in the day. So I went to go get him. Not even like, hope it's not haunted. Just, I was very, very singular dad mode. Like, got to get the kid, man. This is crazy. So I go up there to get her, and I wrangle her, and she runs back downstairs. And I turn to leave, and instantly, the light switch went off on my back, like in my back of my brain, like, someone's watching you, dude. Like, I felt that
Like
way.
the hair standing up on the back of your neck.
Instantly. And I didn't run down the stairs and then I fall. But I did hustle. And I felt like there was just some person just peeking just over a corner at me. It was just something I could not get at. I still think about it every so often. I'm like, Joslin Castle.
That place is reported to be pretty darn haunted. I actually took part in a paranormal investigation there at the Joslin Castle a few years ago. And it is. It's very eerie. It's very, very creepy. And it's not really a malicious feeling. It's not like it's pure concentrated evil. It's just kind of the feeling of, wow, I feel like I'm being watched. I feel heavy energy over here in this corner or that room. And a few years ago, I was actually hired to give some lectures on paranormal subjects on the upper level. That's why I think it's 4 stories, because I think I was up on the fourth floor up there. And it is kind of one of those things, if you wander into a room all by yourself, it'll give you the willies.
The giblies.
But I wonder, because, can you imagine, like, what would happen in the United States if Trump refused to stay at the White House because he thought it was haunted? But again, maybe they're more open or accepting in Brazil, or is it maybe this guy's catching a lot of flack? I'm not sure.
Well, the funny thing is, in kind of looking at this story, That's a whole nother discussion about the White House.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
There's been plenty of ghost stories coming out of the White House. People even spotting former presidents, Lincoln, Lincoln's wife. It seemed like there were a number of different presidents, even famous people who stayed in the White House say they saw ghosts in the White House. So that could be a whole nother discussion someday. But
how could there not be? That's my question. Like,
so much history.
So much history and so much emotion. And, you know, what's really ironic, though, is one of the most famous ghosts that people report being in the White House is Lincoln's ghost, Abe Lincoln. But the ironic part is that when Abe Lincoln was alive, he reported on more than one occasion seeing a ghost in there himself.
Oh, wow.
And then he became the ghost, you know? So it's kind of weird.
And his wife was kind of a special case herself. She was a little crazy.
She was very into the paranormal. They had seances and stuff there at the White House.
What?
Oh yeah.
You never knew.
I didn't know they had seances at the White House.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You remember Edgar Casey? We were talking about the famous psychic from the early 1900s. Last episode, Edgar Casey. He actually was there at the White House and he was partaken in. He had done participated in like a seance or like a spiritual thingamabob at the White House.
That's where it gets funny. I do feel like Americans right now, we're a weird bunch. Like, we'll admit behind closed doors we believe in some of this stuff, but then, like, you know, with this podcast, we're just launching it out into the. But there's people. I mean, like you said, but if the president of the United States, and even forget the most current one, any of them, you know, if Ronald Reagan had been like, I see ghosts, it'd have been like, he'd been out. They would have fired him. Like, he's losing his mind. He's crazy. I don't know how open we are to that kind of stuff as a society. It's kind of like the classic thing, like a person is smart, but people tend to be the opposite.
Well, I guess it partly depends on the government and everything like that, because our government's pretty secretive and skeptical about other topics such as UFOs. But then you got other countries such as Chile and South America. They have so many UFO sightings going on down there that the government founded and funded and established a publicly well-known UFO investigation team. Mm-hmm. And so our government's covering it up, they're digging down to see what they can discover and bring about publicly. So it varies culture to culture, I guess.
And there's countries in Europe too, and the one I'm trying to think of, I can't remember the name, which country it is, but they've had problems with spotting UFOs in their airspace, and they've scrambled to try to catch this stuff. And the government has come out and said, we see these things. We don't know what they are. Yeah. If you're doing this, stay out of our country.
That's crazy.
But you know, they have implied that it could be extraterrestrial vehicles.
Talk about an open-minded culture. The Icelandic people will divert entire construction projects and roadways if their resident shaman believes that there are elves in the vicinity. Really? And that is legit. It's not like a tongue-in-cheek thing. Like, they will have a guy come out and like inspect a proposed construction site for any type of elf activity, and if he feels like there is a reasonable like doubt that there may be elves in this area, they will divert the road. And they have like roads, they'll show you roadways. They look online, you'll see roadway projects that take weird angles and go around like invisible things where a shaman's like, right here there's an elf portal, and
you're driving down the road and you got to take a sharp right. Oh, it's Buddy the Elf.
Buddy the Elf.
I know him. And you quick swerve. Ah! But yeah,
they're also just a more open society in general. I was recently, and now we're totally off the rails here, but that's fine. We're on a tangent of a tangent. I was watching one of my new favorite shows of all time. It's actually an older show, but I'm just new to it. It's called Destination Truth.
Oh yes,
with Josh Gates. It's on the Travel Channel, I believe. But I was watching, it was an episode where they were exploring the phenomena of elves in Iceland. And not only were people really open about that, and they were talking about how they divert roadways if there's elf activity up ahead, but they're just a very open, trusting society. They drove past the president of Iceland. They drove past his house, and there was no wall, no gates, no guards, no security whatsoever. And Josh Gates was like, you're telling me that the president of Iceland lives there and I can walk up and knock on his door? And they're like, for real, you can. So he stopped the car, got out, walked up, knocked on the president's door. Nobody answered, and he shrugged his shoulders and he was like, "Oh, hey, must not be home, must be busy, no big deal." You know, it's like, exactly. This is such a foreign concept.
Yeah,
but
they're cool people.
They're cool people, yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to do a main mystery on elves.
Ooh.
I think
I
you
got to
do.
research that. That sounds fun.
It's got some fun stuff. So, but Brazil, right now their presidential palace.
If you need the president of Brazil, go to the vice presidential palace, not the presidential palace. He won't be home.
Thanks for clearing that up, Pat.
Whew.
It's time for pop, culture, and the paranormal.
Now it's my turn. Pop culture and paranormal. I'm excited. I was hit with this kind of last minute because I wasn't thinking, and I wasn't. But we had been talking recently about trolls in our house, and mostly in the context of the newest iteration of the Troll movie, which is like this. It's a gigantic musical. All these trolls love to sing, and that's like their big thing is singing. But that's a new little addition to the lore for these things. But it got me thinking about trolls in general as first of all, an overall idea, but just the trolls through pop culture and through through the ages, if you will.
It was a whole phenomena, right? Back in the late 80s, early 90s, you had those little good luck trolls that people would carry in their
With
pockets.
the wild hair.
Well, they started in like the 50s.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah. They go
so that
way
was,
back.
That was just a reboot then.
A reboot. And then even now is a reboot of a reboot. I mean,
Right.
and so originally, and this is where I'm going to butcher the names. I should have notes. Pat's way better than I am.
Pat does his homework, man.
Yeah, but the gentleman, so this guy lived in Belgium and basically didn't have money to get presents for his children, so he started whittling these gnomes and giving them little tufts of hair from like goat hair and stuff, and he'd make them their presents. How hardcore
cool.
dad is that, you know?
That's cool.
And they were cool. They looked, they were visually striking, and people at this point know what they look like. These little, little noses and big eyes and little belly button, and they kind of like had this story behind them where if you rub their hair, you'll get good luck, and so that was kind of the cultural thing, and they kind of exploded, and people just liked these gnomes, and then they started moving away from wood and doing them as plastic.
Then they put them on eBay, and it just went crazy.
And it just went crazy from there. But I remember as a kid, like my aunt had a few of them on her dresser, and they were from like the 60s and 70s. I mean, so these things have kind of been persistent in our culture on some level. Of course, in the 80s, I think 80s, early 90s, they rebranded them, and they were like the extreme trolls, and they had like sneakers on and sunglasses.
Yeah, there was like a million different versions, and I had them all.
Yeah, did you?
Yeah, I had a little collection going, yeah.
Oh gosh, and I had, I think, a couple of troll dolls. I think they were like the kind of the original looking ones, a little, just naked. They tend to be
Right.
naked.
They're
Yeah.
naked, yeah.
Yeah, and all they have is little butts. They don't have any like genitals or anything. There's none of that. But little troll butts. But in that conversation, it got us talking about
Pat lost it over here.
little troll butts.
Hashtag troll butts.
But it got us talking, and I was thinking about trolls just in general. I mean, this is our pop culture. I mean, this is where like you just say trolls, and people think about the most recent iteration. Oh, like
Yeah.
the movie,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
where they're singing. And yeah, that's a fun movie, and it's actually quite cute. You can watch it if you haven't seen it. But reaching back, when you start looking up trolls, I mean, this creature has been like persistent throughout human culture and history for a very long time.
Well, you go back to the children's book, was it Three Billy Goats Gruff?
Yes.
There's a troll in it. That
Troll
lives
under
under
the
the
bridge.
bridge. Yep.
And all the photos the drawings I've seen of him, he's kind of a tall, skinny
He's a
guy.
big guy.
Yeah, he looks nothing like the little trolls that they collected, in the 80s. But yeah, there's a lot of different movies where you got the nice trolls that
Yes.
are kind of like almost Smurf-like,
Yep.
and then you got the evil trolls
Yes.
that will pop out from under your bed and like cut your head off.
Yes.
Sleep tight, children.
Ah.
There's a movie on Netflix I've been meaning to watch. Maybe you've already seen it. It's called Troll Hunters.
Yes.
And I haven't worked up the nerve to watch it.
It's
Is
good.
it good?
Is this so? It's either Iceland or Norway.
Of course.
It's a foreign movie.
Nice.
And they speak English.
Okay.
It's heavily accented English. It may be subtitled. I may be wrong on that one.
Gotcha.
Regardless, it's very good. And
Now, this isn't like a documentary, like a Finding Bigfoot thing,
it's
is
filmed like a found footage movie. So think
okay.
like Blair Witch Project
Right.
meets Trolls.
Okay.
But it's very cool. It's very well done. The idea being, and this I'm not giving any spoilers away. This is the idea. The thrust behind the movie is that trolls are real. And it's a huge government conspiracy to cover up their existence, because if people knew that they were real, then it would mean that other things were real too, and that there is this fantastical world that is around us, and they just don't want you to know that. Basically, go to work, pay your bills, and keep on. So the idea being that the government has people on their payroll who are legitimate troll hunters who go out and hunt trolls. And the idea being that when exposed to sun, because they go into hiding during the daylight and they come out at night, that when exposed to sunlight, they would turn into stone. And so one of the weapons that these troll hunters carries around with them is basically a UV type lamp that allows him to kind of wrangle these trolls and get them. And there's like little ones and big ones, and it's very well done.
Oh, now I have to watch it.
Check
Yeah,
that out.
it's not a scary movie. It's more of a thriller type movie.
Oh, cool.
It's not a horror movie at all. Very good. I recommend it. I watched it on a whim, and I was engaged.
Hunters.
Troll Hunters. I really recommend it. But so it's funny we mentioned that, because when you start reading about trolls and digging back, going back, there may be other cultures that have a similar type of creature but have a different word for it. But most of the whole etymology of the word troll and the idea of it mostly harkens into like the Nordic and like Northern European type cultures. Belgium, Norway, Sweden, Iceland, those kinds of areas. And the idea being that these are just giant, like, they might look like people, they might have human-like features, but they're kind of more ugly or monstrous looking. And genuinely, the notion is they're either mischievous or bad. Like, there's never, like, a good troll. And certainly not a lucky one. But the idea being that they're either just kind of like, they just kind of like causing a little bit of trouble.
Kind of like gremlins or something like that.
Kind of like gremlins. And more passive too, maybe. Almost like the best equivalent to a modern day creature would be like a real creature would be like maybe like a raccoon. Like, but just a real big one. Or maybe dipping into where they are kind of malevolent and it's like, I'm going to mess with some people, But very interesting stories and myths behind the idea of trolls. Like you had mentioned, the 80s just went wild with the scary trolls. Right. The one I saw was where he like had this ring and he'd stick you with it and it would turn you in to a troll or some sort of creature. Scared the living daylights out of me as a child. HBO, the portal to all things like inappropriate and scarring of a child. But I was terrified of there being like trolls in my house. And I was little. I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Board up the windows.
I'd go on troll patrol.
Troll patrol. People like, what's happening, Eddie? Is there a hurricane coming? Nope, just putting up this plywood to block the windows from the trolls.
Guys, you don't know. You can't be too safe. wear big boots when you go to sleep. They can't bite your ankles.
Now, trolls should not be confused with gnomes. Am I correct in that
You are
statement?
correct in that, yes.
Are they cousins?
Okay.
I think trolls and gnomes occupy a similar, like, family type thing, but gnomes generally are just tiny people. They may have elf type ears. The idea that
they're nicer.
They're nice. They're chill.
They hang out in the garden.
They hang out in the garden. They live inside mushrooms. It's more similar to Smurfs,
Right.
if you would. Yeah, they're classic. But yeah,
and sometimes gnomes will moon you, according to some of the figurines I saw at a home goods store here in town. they got them posed in different ways, and I saw one with a little gnome mooning you.
See, gnome butts. See,
No,
you can't get away.
hashtag gnome butt.
Can't troll butts, gnome butts, but gnomes tend to not be big. They tend to be tiny.
Sure.
So, as far as that goes, and we can talk about gnomes. I like gnomes.
That'll be a whole nother episode right there.
That's my wheelhouse.
But with the trolls, though, there's been a lot of different manifestations in pop culture throughout the years. Just a few years ago, there was a movie that actually was surprisingly well done, I thought. I think it was called Jack the Giant Slayer. It was a retelling of Jack and the Beanstalk, and once they kind of get up to that, fairy land in the clouds, they do kind of have a run-in with trolls as they're trying to make their way to the giants realm.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of cool. They all talk in British accents, and it was kind of neat. And then a huge spoiler alert, but if you haven't seen it by now, I'll get with the program here.
Yeah.
It was like the sun comes out and they all like turn into pillars of like cement, basically.
Yeah. Yep. There's a scene in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's the Hobbit, actually.
Yeah.
Where these trolls, I think they call them mountain trolls, get a hold of the band of dwarves and hobbits, and they literally are debating on how to eat them. And this is a spoiler alert.
Or maybe
the book
that's
is
what I'm
80 years
thinking
old.
of,
I think you're thinking of the Hobbit.
I am thinking of The Hobbit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Never mind everything that I just said.
But they have these great Cockney British accents.
Yeah,
like,
that's
oh
it.
man, should we eat this guy now or later? And he's like, we wait, man, it's great.
That's a
They're
pretty good accent.
Thanks, man. And they're fighting back and forth, and they turn into stone. It's a great scene.
Sure.
Oh man. But yeah, I mean, these creatures, the fact that they're what I like about them, at least the myth of these creatures, and the idea of them being persistent in popular culture is they're human enough that they're relatable.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they have, they tend to slant towards like grouchiness or whatever at their best, but they look humanoid and they have kind of human drives. Like I'm hungry. I want to see some mystery or some mischief caused or whatever. But
Peek in the windows.
or in the most modern movie
grumpy.
case, I just want to dance and sing all day. What's up? But it's a great. Talk about stoking the fires of a new imagination. I mean, the movie, especially the newest one for Trolls, between being great musically, but also the storyline in and of itself is very cute, and they have to keep singing to keep their color in their hair and all that. And have you seen it?
I have seen it actually.
Okay.
We saw it in the theaters with our daughter Sky, and it's a cute movie. But the new movie Trolls, it kind of was like kind of Fraggle Rock.
It was, yes,
because it's kind of darker, not like in a like morbid kind of way, but just the lighting of the movie is kind of darker,
a little dingy,
kind of dingy and cave like, and so it kind of reminded me of Fraggle Rock a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. They did do a lot of Fraggle work on that.
It's kind of fraggled up a little bit.
Man, what the Fraggle?
I was always more of a Muppet guy versus Fraggle Rock.
Yeah, same people.
I wasn't a big Fraggle Rock fan.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
It's kind of creepy. When the opening, and here we're off the rails again. But
No, we're fine.
When Fraggle Rock, I remember watching it as a real young kid, and I remember I would always go hide when the opening thing came on. He had that little Fraggle like riding a bicycle or something.
Yeah.
He was going like through all the holes in the caves
Right.
underground. It scared me for some reason. I don't know if it was like the motions of the Muppet or the puppets or what, but it creeped me out, and I never wanted to watch it.
I know what you
Hey
mean.
Andy, Fraggle Rock is on.
I'm not down with Fraggle Rock.
I know what you're talking about, and I think I know what it was for me.
What?
Because I liked Fraggle Rock, but I always found it a little kind of like creepy. It
was creepy.
And I think I know why. Because they showed these little people, essentially, that lived and had a whole like economy and social structure that were living behind this guy's like house, like under his house.
Yeah.
And he didn't even know it. And so the fact that like there was this whole nother world that he didn't even know about happening. On one hand, as an older kid, I think would have been like cool, but as a little kid, it was like the idea of that being real was off-putting me to enough. Like,
Look at all these things living under his house. That poor guy.
yeah, he's paying his bills, and these things are just mooching off of him. No, I was kind of like, man, I'm doing my day-to-day routine. Why don't there's a little tiny thing running around my room, taking stuff and stealing my buttons?
And as a little kid, it's just scary. I remember, on a similar note, I remember being a little kid watching Gremlins for the first time.
Oh,
Again, thanks HBO, thanks Mom for letting me watch Gremlins when I was 7 years
How
old.
were they to know? It was PG.
Yeah, true. Oh, it was PG?
I think it was PG.
It was pushing boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think PG-13 might not have been around.
Red Dawn was the first
Was that the first
PG-13
one?
movie.
Yeah, okay.
But I'm watching Gremlins, and I think it's the very last line of the movie when they say, something like, be careful, there just might be a gremlin in your house.
Yeah.
And then the credits roll, and I look to my left and I look to my right, and I'm like, really? I
dude.
can't sleep. I was like, if there's a
dude.
gremlin, like, where's he at? In the dryer? Is he in my closet? Is he under the bed?
That crazy that music too gets to you. You're like, no.
And it takes place at Christmas, so it's just all wrong and out of place.
So I watched it again as an adult
Yeah.
when we were on my other podcast, Age of Instruction Manual. We were hosting an Alamo movie, and they did Gremlins. And watching it as an adult, you get like, oh, this is cool. I get it. It's juxtaposition. It's scary. It's Christmas. Cool. But as a little kid, man, you're so impressionable. It's not right.
So again, Gremlins kind of like the weird second cousin to Trolls, and same with
It's
Gnomes.
all those mischievous, scary. You mentioned these old shows. There was a show when I was a kid. You guys might remember this, called Jim Henson's Storyteller. If you haven't seen this, try to find it. You cannot get it digitally on Amazon. They will not let you download it. You can download it in different regions, like Europe, I think, but not here. But we managed to find it on DVD. But it was in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was a great show. It had Jonathan Hurt, who passed away last year, the actor, play the storyteller, and he would tell these ancient stories, like Grimm's fairy tale.
Remember this.
Yeah, and they were not like cleaned up. They were like dirty, grimy, like scary stories. And one of them was this guy had stolen death. He stole death and caught it in a bag because he got this. He won this bag in this game from a wizard that could catch anything inside it. Like it could hold anything, and he chose to capture death because apparently his like mother was dying or something, and he's like, I know, I'll capture death in the bag, and my mom will never die. So he captures death in the bag, and he has a mirror that he can see death sitting by his mother's bed, and they made this puppet to be the symbolism of death, and this thing looks up, and it has the most like scary face. It's not even like scary, like monstrous. It's scary in its simplicity, almost ghost-like. Yeah,
Black.
Yeah.
It's just like a black.
It was almost a pale green, actually. Its face, and a big pale blue eyes, and it looks up, and its mouth opens up, like kind of like agape. And it was just enough as a kid that image, even as an adult man, to this day, pops into my head.
Scared the hell out of you.
Scared the living. I shortened my lifespan, I think. But anyway, trolls. Oh man, they're a great. If you're ever like wanting to kind of research something, even for fun, and talk to your like kids about it, and just kind of fun story time, trolls. You will not be short on stories when you look up trolls.
And now it's time for the main mystery.
ORBS. Orbs.
Ooh.
Orbs.
The orbs.
Orbs.
I chose it as the main mystery for today. Actually, I took a poll on my Facebook fan page asking some of my followers. I gave them multiple choice A, B, C, and D. Most people said that they wanted the main mystery of this episode to be orbs. So ask and ye shall receive.
Let's orb it up.
And I think it was a popular choice because when you think about it, it's relevant to just about everybody. To catch you up to speed in case you're not familiar with orbs, simply put, they're those little kind of translucent bubbles that will sometimes show up in your photographs, whether it be a new digital camera on your cell phone or an old-fashioned wind-up camera or a Polaroid. You tend to see these little bubbles floating around, and sometimes there's one, sometimes there's dozens, sometimes there's 100. More often than not, there's none. But I think it's relevant because most of us living on planet Earth have seen these in our photos from time to time.
Oh yeah.
And I think they're hotly debated. I get a lot of emails to my office, as a psychic medium, people sending me photos of this, videos of that, asking for my opinion on what it could be. And in my humble opinion, I think orbs are kind of the wild card of paranormal evidence because I believe in ghosts, I believe in angels, I believe in weird energies, and I also believe in dust.
Yeah.
And I think depending on the photo, you could have one of any of those options. Sometimes it truly is dust. Have you guys ever captured one of these in any of your photos?
I've definitely seen in some of the pictures I've taken. Now, whether or not what they are, I guess
Right.
I haven't looked at them close enough to say, hey, I wonder if there's something to this. I guess I play the skeptic when I see stuff like that in photos a lot of the time. Although when you go looking for it in that mindset, I think you can find some pretty interesting cases where it could be something to this. Is that like a spirit that you've captured on film?
Yeah, I haven't captured anything in a photo. And if I have, it's been so like random looking. And, part of the thing for me for paranormal experiences is like there's always some frame of context, and even if there are orbs in photos that I've seen, they tend to be just kind of random all over the place.
Right.
So even if it's just hard to kind of glean anything from that.
There's no pattern. If the orbs lined up and spelled your name Eddie in the photo,
I'd be like,
that looks
dust.
a little odd.
It's dust.
It's dust.
I'm not going. No, run. It has that or something.
Or if it was a smiley face. of
Exactly.
orbs.
Dork with an arrow pointing at me.
Some of the more interesting cases that I've seen have been related to like the cemeteries, or not necessarily the cemeteries, but the battlefields of the Civil War era.
Yeah.
And, there's just so many instances of people capturing that kind of stuff, even at night. It's just they're pretty. There's some pretty weird stories that I've seen online about that.
Every now and again, I'll get somebody who submits a photo to me and asks my opinion on it, and the claiming that they can see a face inside the bubble, like a face inside the orb, like, hey, that looks exactly like Grandpa Harry who passed away last month, and you hate to say it, I think some people do to grief or just due to willingness to believe. You can make it. Yeah, I guess you can make it. You can talk yourself into thinking, yes, that looks kind of sort of vaguely similar to Grandpa Harry who passed away last month. But again, it has to be kind of similar to those people who see the Virgin Mary in their potato chip,
right,
and then sell it on eBay for $1 million.
Right.
And there's even a term for it. I can't think of the term off the top of my head.
Matrixing.
Well, yeah, there's a term. It's like a psychological term of seeing shapes and figures in other things.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I thought I had it.
What'd you call it, matrixing?
No, I thought it was matrixing, where you start finding patterns and things that there's no real pattern.
Yeah.
Anyway, I might be dead wrong. I'm probably wrong.
Pat's our research guy. You could probably find it up. It's on the tip of my tongue. I can't. And then there's probably a term for that when something's on the tip of your tongue and you can't quite.
What's that called?
What's that called? Anyway, it's kind of a weird phenomena, but I have seen some images that look suspiciously like angels or very much like it could be a ghost. I've seen some kind of smudges or smears, almost like translucent streaks in images that do look eerily similar to an actual shape. But and I don't really like the word skeptical, but I like anybody else, I kind of approach it rationally at first. I want to believe, but first I want to rule out a glare. I want to rule out the string from the camera being in front of the lens. I want to rule out somebody's finger being over the lens if it's a smartphone. I want to rule out street lights and things coming. Because, if you take a picture, if you were to point your camera at, like, let's say that light bulb over in the corner, and you take a picture as you're moving the camera, you're going to get a streak of light that looks like a snake.
Right.
And you could say, oh my gosh, that's a spirit. Or you can say, well, it's a light bulb and I had a shaky hand when I took the camera.
Right.
So I think it's a wild card. Sometimes maybe you did capture a ghost or an angel or a spirit or an energy pocket, but sometimes it could be user error. Sometimes it could be dust particles. I remember years ago I was at this spiritual retreat, one of these deals where you meditate as a group and you do some prayer, and at the end of the night you have a community bonfire. So we're all sitting around, and you got a bunch of very open-minded people, very spiritually based people. It was a really great time, actually. But at the end of the night, we're throwing dusty logs onto the fire. Mm-hmm. Somebody gets the idea of, I'm going to take a picture so I can capture this moment because we had such a nice weekend. And then they said in their digital camera, oh my God, there's like 100 orbs in this photo, and we actually ended up debunking it, long story short, because it was smoky as hell out there. You got dusty logs on the fire. It was dust particles in the air. Mm-hmm. Because when we went inside and, tried to duplicate it, we couldn't because it was a controlled environment with clean air.
Yeah. This is where, like, calling orbs what they are more often than not what they are isn't necessarily an attempt to be like that, like the quote unquote skeptic and be like, I'm not convinced on anything. But it, like you said before, I forget the symposium you were giving, but it was like, if it's called paranormal for a reason. If it was that common, if you took a photo and there was hundreds of these, paranormal orbs around you, then it would start to become normal. Like, it's just, and behavior to me is also part of it. Like, if you did see an orb in a photo and it didn't drift or change, or you took a succession of photos and you saw maybe a pattern of movement in there, that to me starts to have a thing like, oh my gosh, this orb is moving in a pattern. It's not just falling randomly. So it's not like it's not possible that these things would have some form of like otherworldliness to them, but I don't know.
And I have had clients that submitted video evidence to me of what looked like basically what I would call it looks like a very big speck of dust that changed direction.
Yeah.
So one that floated up and then hovered there for a second and then shot down real quick.
Right.
Now those are a little bit harder to to chalk up to mundane explanations, because unless there's a major change of air current direction in the room,
Right.
it looks like it's under intelligent control.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I guess one of the things, as we talk about this, we're talking about photos and video, but are there reports of people seeing orbs, with their naked eye?
Right.
And the one thing that comes to mind is when I lived down in Kansas City, the locals there would talk about this place. It was a highway down in Missouri someplace, and a place I'd very much like to go. I believe they called it the ghost lights, on this kind of secluded highway down in Missouri. You can drive there at night, and these lights appear, and they will follow your car. They'll shoot past your car. They'll kind of dance around in front of you. But people have actually gone down, and they park down there, and they actually see these lights. So it's like it's a common thing to the locals down there that this happens, and they have no explanation of what this is. But the Missouri ghost lights is definitely something I would love to go down and take a look and see if I could actually spot something like that.
The MGLs, Missouri Ghost Lights. We should do a live podcast there.
We
someday.
should.
That would be awesome. Just go down there.
That's not far either.
Park in some farm field someplace.
Let's do it.
And then wait for the ghost lights to
Let's
come.
let the farmer know.
Take this gig
Yes.
regional.
Get off my land.
He'll come out. What y'all doing? What's a podcast?
Sounds fishy. This is probably more easily explained for my experience, and I didn't see this firsthand. This was told to me from several people. It's all family. It was at my grandmother's house, and my mom and her sisters, and they had cousins over. And so a common occurrence in my mother's house growing up was family would come over, they would eat, and then they would whip out the old guitars and start playing music. And that was just a common thing that they would do. And they had TV, but they didn't really watch a bunch of it. Although they were kind of not hillbilly, they were kind of rednecky, because there weren't hillbillies in Florida. A little, but it was cool because it was all very communal, and then people hung out and had, just chilled. But they would watch. I asked my grandmother what shows that they watched, and she's like, we would watch Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, Church, and Star Trek.
That's a little leap there.
I know. I loved it. I loved it. But so they watched those shows, but otherwise they would just play music. And my granddad, on my mom's side, had a reel-to-reel recorder, and he would just record them, kind of like the earliest form of podcasting.
Right.
They would actually record their hangouts, and they'd do like interviews with the kids. And
Oh, really?
That's so cool.
It was great. And so, but one of the times they were having this kind of family get-together, what was reported from family as ball lightning came through the bay window of my grandmother's house. Literally came through the window. The window didn't break. It came through the window, hovered around the house, and then went out another window. It was very weird. They called it ball lightning. Andy looks like he's incredulous.
Is very weird.
I'm like geeking out because ball lightning, it's such a lesser known phenomenal in the unknown realms. I'm enthralled. I'm fascinated by it. Can you want to explain real quick what it is for people who may have never heard the term before?
The best I understand ball lightning to be is that it is a legitimate form of lightning that's also created through heavy static. And that for some reason it takes the form of a ball, like a sphere, and it's not like a solid looking like a basketball. It has like maybe a plasma kind of look to it, and it kind of floats. And just, I don't know if it like shoots around the room or it goes into a straight path. I don't know how ball lightning behaves according to the report, and maybe I should have looked this up as a video, but from what the description from my mom and my aunts when I was younger was, it was about the size of a volleyball. It came through the window, it hovered around the room for a bit, and then went out the porch.
The weird thing is that it seems like 90% of the cases of ball lightning that I've seen on documentaries or read about, it enters through a window and exits through a window.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's under intelligent control, or there's just some natural force where it's just looking looking to get back outside. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
Weird.
Does it?
Yeah.
But you do hear some of these cases where it will like discharge or it'll like explode like violently.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's been cases of that too. But and there's also been cases of ball lightning that entered through a plane window as a plane was flying through the air, and it kind of floated down the center of the aisle, and then again somehow went out the window. Or through the window, because I'm talking about an airplane at 30,000 feet. It's not like the window was open.
It doesn't break the window.
It doesn't break the window. It like goes through the glass and back outside.
It's so weird.
But there are some cases of it like violently exploding inside of a house and like catching part of a kitchen on fire and whatnot.
Oh my god!
But I mean, maybe there's some YouTube videos or something out there. But in all the documentaries that I've ever watched on this, no one has ever got it on film that I've seen.
Really?
Yeah, it's that rare.
That's crazy.
But it's kind of in the wheelhouse of Orbs.
Yeah.
Because again, it's like a weird second cousin.
Talking about a ball of energy. I mean, you don't get more ball of energy than a
big ball. Were they recording on the reel-to-reel recorder the night that happened?
They hadn't gotten the recorder set up yet.
Gotcha.
In fact, they were just gotten done eating, and they were all like getting ready to like sit down and stuff, and they were just getting instruments out, like getting guitars, and literally like they would play like a family band. It was crazy. And they were just getting set up, and then right there, this stuff just comes through the window. And Florida, at least Orlando, at one point in time, they said was the lightning capital of the world.
Tampa is.
Tampa,
yeah.
Okay. And
is your family where they were at?
Both.
Anywhere
Well,
near Tampa?
they lived in Orlando at the time.
So how far away is it? I'm not familiar with the Florida geography.
It's 2 hours east.
Okay.
Northeast.
But still, you're in the vicinity, though.
Oh,
I mean, a
sure.
lightning capital of the world. One of them, anyway.
It's so, and when it storms there, I mean, we've already seen some stuff.
Yeah.
some stuff. But, yeah, I mean, the thing about that is, no sensational additions to the story, no, and then we saw a ghost after that. No, it was just like they had ball lightning come in, and it hovered around, then left.
And the ghost of Abe Lincoln was riding on the orb.
He came in. And, yeah, and everybody kind of corroborated the story. It was like...
I'd love to hear the tape from that night.
I know,
God.
right? They hadn't recorded it yet, though. But yeah, after the fact.
Yeah, after the fact.
Yeah, there's family members who have all those reel-to-reel tapes still. But yeah, it's crazy. It's one of those things that you'd love to be present when it happens, just to be able to kind of just start wrapping your head around it.
That would make me nervous. I just assume rather see a Bigfoot in the window. I think that would scare me a little less than a ball lightning floating about like a volleyball.
Leaving.
There's nothing you can do.
No.
You gotta just hide.
What are you gonna do? Throw something at it?
Yeah, get out, get.
Throw a guitar at it and then it blows up in
Throw
front
a
of
flip
everybody.
flop at it. Just vaporize it.
It's the size of a volleyball. Try to bump it, set it, and spike it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So as a kid, when my mom told me the story, this is before those plasma balls became like available in toy stores. So a couple years later, we were out and about, and I saw one of those plasma balls, like you could put your fingers on.
Oh, and the lightning kind of trickles up.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "That's kind of what it looked like a little bit." I kind of had that look to it. I was like, "Dang, it's floating around in your house. Oh, it's so weird." You wouldn't sleep well that night. I wouldn't. I'd be like, "The ball lightning is coming."
Is it like a vampire where you can like take back the invitation and it leaves?
Exactly.
It needs to be invited in.
You can't come in, ball lightning. I've not invited you. Tough luck, kid.
Well,
Yeah.
in line with orbs, the kind that show up in photos anyway, this is kind of, I don't know, one that's kind of near and dear to my heart and my family lore. My grandma passed away in January of 2008. I was really super close with my grandma Myers, and actually back in the day, she kind of ignited my curiosity in all the paranormal and the mystical things. And anyway, after she passed, so the following Christmas, the first Christmas we had without Grandma Myers, we did a big family photo, of course, on Christmas morning. And later, when we got the photos printed out, I noticed that in the photo there's a giant, a pretty big translucent orb that's resting right on the side of my cheek, touching right against my cheek. And we'll never be able to prove it or disprove it. Skeptics will scoff, believers will sigh and think it's cute. But I just kind of figured maybe it was my Grandma Myers giving me a kiss. Give me a kiss on my cheek on Christmas morning. Which she always did. She always kissed me on the cheek.
I like that. I'm going to go with that.
Yeah.
And it's all by itself. It's not like surrounded by anything.
And it was the only one in the picture, and it was just right on the edge of my cheek, as if just like it was a kiss. So that's how I'm gonna take it anyway, and I don't care what other people say.
Exactly. It was tiny ball lightning.
Yeah, it's tiny ball lightning. Yeah, you missed the next photo where my head's exploded.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
No, I was grandma for sure.
Yeah.
I love it.
But it's cool. I mean, and if you have any photos of orbs or videos of orbs, you can send them to me personally, or you can send them to paranormaldads@gmail.com. We'll take a look at it and analyze it and maybe do a follow-up episode someday. But it's kind of one of those things where we can only give our opinion.
Yeah.
Because they're elusive to say the least. But it's a relative, relatable phenomenon because most of us have captured them in our pictures. So humble advice. Don't try to catch them you can try to catch them when you're doing a campfire. You'll catch thousands of them, but it's just dust particles.
Run around the jar.
That's right.
Or sparks from the fire.
And also, where else can people find us, Pat, if they want to suggest topics for future shows?
You can find us on Twitter at Paranormal Dads, Facebook, Paranormal Dads. We are the podcast on Podbean, Stitcher Radio. Download it on iTunes. We love to see reviews. We've got a few out there. Unfortunately, I did not do my homework there. I didn't record the names of people who have left us reviews, but I do appreciate you taking the time to do that and for listening to the show.
Yeah, please review us. It allows us to be able to exposes us to more opportunities through iTunes. So let us know what you like about us, and
you can find us on Twitter using the hashtag TrollButts.
Trollbutts.
And stay tuned for coming episodes because here in the near future we're gonna have some guests on. We're gonna mix it up a little bit, add a little pizzazz. We're gonna have some guests on to share their stories of sightings of weird creatures, to tell their true events of bizarre occurrences. And so we're just getting started. We're also going to do some on-site live podcasts coming up here in the coming months. So I think we got a good 6 episodes under our belt now. I think it's time to broaden our horizons and expand a little bit.
We're here to stay now. 6 episodes in. That's the rule.
We're here.
And also special thanks to freesounds.org for any of your sound effect needs. Please feel free to look them up, download, share, and give credit where credit's due with freesounds.org.
Thanks, everybody.